I think it's the last one altogether, full focus for 2024, back at the factory, in the wind tunnel and in the design office. But this is, a small step in that direction.
George Russell has been visibly frustrated with the tactics of his team during the Austin GP, and it seems like he feels like there was a lot more at play than he was left with. But this is not something that's going to be left out there on the drive by the Brit, and he was not holding any angry words towards his team's options. With a lot more to play for Russell, and with how the race ended for him, this is something that has the potential to spark some controversy in Mercedes. And more importantly, how will Russell make sure that Mercedes is going to listen to him when it matters the most? If there is one thing that's more or less guaranteed in F1, it's the rivalry between Hamilton and Russell. And while you think that this is not something we should create a lot of drama about, reality speaks otherwise. Hamilton has been the more dominant driver in 2023, but the fact that Russell outperformed him in 2022 in a car that was struggling to be understood by its driver still stands as it is, and therefore it makes absolute sense for Russell to be pushing for being the #1 driver in the team in the foreseeable future. Now, Formula 1 is a merciless sport, and drivers like Hamilton know that the best, which is why he made sure that the dominance from his side would be implemented throughout the course of the 2023 season when it came to the intra-team battle. However, one mistake in Qatar, as well as the disqualification process in Austin, made sure that Russell narrowed the gap to his older compatriot. And while the situation is not brilliant for the young superstar right now, there is no doubt that this is not the end from his side. Many would feel like Mercedes is deliberately sabotaging Russell in order to make Hamilton happy in the team. And even though this is a far-fetched scenario that doesn't make any common sense, it's not something that the F1 world can throw away in the can just like that. Russell finished the Austin GP 7th, on a day that he wishes never happened in racing terms. And while his teammate was 2 seconds behind Verstappen before being disqualified, it was definitely not the result that Russell would have wanted, even with him gaining 2 positions after Leclerc and Hamilton were disqualified. Elaborating on this matter, Russell made sure to point the finger towards his team, as he went on to say, "The race start really cost me. I think I lost 3 positions. And then I don't know why, but when we put the hard tyre on, we were massively off the pace. We had some problems with fuel consumption, I had to manage the engine, and we were a second off the pace on the hard, just dropping like a stone." This is the story of the season really. It feels of missed opportunities, on the back foot from the beginning, making a bad start. And then we put a hard tyre on and we had to manage the fuel, we had to manage the engine a little bit. We were about second off the pace and we put the medium back on and we were the quickest car on track. Closed in on Max by about 10 seconds and on Lewis by a couple of seconds. So standing here, I'm thinking it was definitely another missed opportunity and frustrating we weren't on the podium. Now, considering how competitive Lewis was, it goes without saying that Russell has everything to be sorry for, especially with how the race slowly but surely started to show him that the cold reality of wrong tactics. But with how Hamilton has been making progress in the past couple of races, minus the DNF in Qatar and the disqualification in Austin, it feels like there is a lot going on between both Mercedes drivers right now. And to top that off, the Austin GP's upgrades were ones that Russell didn't really like that much, according to Wolff. Elaborating on this matter, the Austrian team principal went on to say, "The lap time was competitive that Lewis was able to post, but it's not like that the car is suddenly super fast. In certain areas it feels more comfortable, and George on the other side wasn't satisfied with how the car was going for him." And apart from Hamilton being extra stoked by the car's performance, it seems like he's the only one who's celebrating how the car should behave, as Russell has been quite adamant that the car is definitely not to his liking. This was the scenario that prevailed back in 2022, with Russell being the driver who pushed more towards the zero-pod design of the car, while Hamilton was extremely happy to go in any other direction that was already proven by the other teams. This is the upgrade and the version of the car the team is going to stick with. And when talking about this matter, Andrew Chauvelin had only positives to take away from the race, as he said, "Going through the data, the upgraded floor looks to be giving us what we hoped for, and the drivers are feeling a benefit. That's encouraging." This, however, is not what Russell felt like when driving the car, which was translated into his poor performance during the entire Austin GP. Even when he said that the upgrades have exceeded his expectations, Russell was still shy on words due to the poor weekend he's had compared to Hamilton. And when asked about how he would describe his racing weekend in a brief summary, the Brit wasn't satisfied with himself or the amount of work he's put in the car. As he said, "I've been off the pace and I'm not being able to identify why. I can definitely feel the improvements we've made with the update, but it's been a strange Friday. I'll put it on my shoulders though as the driver. I just need to work on finding out why I've not been as quick as I think we can be. I'm pretty pleased with P5, as at some points it looked like we may not have even made it through to Q3. My final lap was a reasonable effort. I made a small mistake at turn 1 which probably cost me one more position on the grid." Now, what seems to be the future for Mercedes? Right now the team has set sail on the right path, which is to bring home the P2 positions in both championships. While that mission has taken a massive hit with Hamilton being kicked out of the race and Sainz finishing higher than Russell, it's not done yet. And Mercedes is now headed into races that are suitable for their cars much more than the previous venues on the calendar. This, however, is not necessarily translating good news for its drivers, because more likely than not, both of them are going to push towards actually winning the race no matter what it takes. And while Hamilton's lead is more than certain compared to his teammate, you can never tell how much one race result can change the entire outcome. And the emotions seem to be shared by both sides, as Hamilton announced that he was motivated more than ever to deliver a good result in Austin because of the crash that happened in Qatar, implying that he's a much better driver than what we saw in the desert and that he can always rise from the mistakes he's committing. Elaborating on this matter, the 7-time world champion said, "It was really difficult after the last race. Firstly, with everything that's going on in the world, and then obviously the big mistake that I made. I really felt I let the team down so much. I had to go through a really deep process of getting myself back here. It was just one of those experiences of, it's not how you fall, it's how you get back up. So I came in fighting, felt great, and I'm really happy with this result." But what Hamilton and Russell tend to have issues understanding is the fact that they're now playing the team's game, which is both of them bringing home as many points as possible, and therefore the main priority should be put on the Constructors' Championship. Even though both of them did not collide in Austin, the result did see Mercedes losing out a certain portion of their lead. And now that the F1 Caravan has only 4 races remaining, the stakes are very high in the team regarding the Proud Games. Mercedes is very likely going to push towards the scenario of each driver respecting the team and putting it first compared to its ego. But when you have 2 very dominant drivers, there's always the possibility of them going head to head and pushing towards their own agenda becoming a reality, which is to win a race in 2023. So, after hearing all this, what do you think about Russell's statements towards Mercedes? Let us know in the comments down below.